1. Let's delve even deeper into this 1978 Chevy El Camino. This particular model, being a rear Conquesta, adds an extra layer of intrigue to an already fascinating vehicle. The El Camino, which translates to the road in Spanish, has a rich history dating back to its introduction in 1959. By 1978, it had evolved into a well-refined vehicle that combined the comfort of a car with the utility of a pickup truck. The brown paint color on this El Camino is quintessentially 70s, evoking a sense of nostalgia for the era. It's a color that has made a comeback in recent years, making this vehicle both a classic and oddly contemporary. The clean title is a significant plus, indicating that the vehicle hasn't been in any major accidents or had any legal issues. Under the hood, the 8-cylinder engine is a powerhouse. Chevy offered several V8 options in 1978, including a 305 cubic inch, 5.0L, and a 350 cubic inch, 5.7L version. Without more specific information, we can't be sure which one this El Camino has, but either would provide ample power for both cruising and hauling. The rear-wheel drive configuration is typical for trucks and muscle cars of this era, offering a driving experience that many enthusiasts prefer. It allows for better weight distribution when hauling in the bed and can make for some fun driving dynamics, especially for those who enjoy a bit of oversteer. With 109,000 miles on the odometer, this El Camino has certainly been driven, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Regular use can often be better for a vehicle than sitting idle for long periods. However, it does mean that potential buyers should be prepared for some wear and tear on components. The automatic transmission is likely the turbo-hydromatic, which was common in GM vehicles of this era. Known for its durability, this transmission can handle the power of the V8 engine well. However, at this age, it may require some attention or rebuilding, which is something to consider in the overall cost of ownership. One of the most intriguing aspects of this El Camino is its original cap. These caps were designed to cover the bed, essentially turning the El Camino into a two-door station wagon. They're becoming increasingly rare to find in good condition, so having the original is a significant selling point for collectors and enthusiasts. The seller's description of the vehicle running and driving well is encouraging, but it's important to remember that well is relative when dealing with a 45-year-old vehicle. It may run well for its age, but it's unlikely to perform like a modern vehicle. Potential buyers should be prepared for the quirks and maintenance requirements that come with classic car ownership. 2. Let's talk about this sweet 1967 Ford Mustang that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $10,500. This iconic pony car is a true piece of American automotive history, and it's looking for a new home. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. This 67 Mustang is rocking the 200 cubic inch inline-6 engine, which might not be the powerhouse V8 some folks dream of, but it's a reliable and efficient power plant that's perfect for cruising. It's paired with a 3-speed manual transmission, giving you that classic engaged driving experience that's becoming increasingly rare these days. The seller says it runs and drives great, which is music to our ears for a car that's over half a century old. They've also added some nice upgrades, including power steering and power front disc brakes. These modern touches should make this vintage beauty a bit easier to handle on today's roads. The Mustang is sporting a blue paint job, which is a classic color choice for these cars. The body style is the beloved coupe, and it's got that clean title we all love to see. The seller describes the condition as good, but remember we're talking about a 56-year-old car here. Good, in classic car terms, often means it's solid, but might need some TLC. Interestingly, the seller mentions it would make a good driver or a good project car. This suggests that while it's in running condition, there might be some areas that could use improvement. It's always a good idea to inspect a classic car thoroughly or have a professional do it before making a purchase. For $2,500, this 67 Mustang could be a great entry point into classic car ownership. It's not a show car, but it's a solid platform whether you want to keep it as a fun weekend driver or dive into a full restoration project. Just remember, owning a classic car is often a labor of love that requires time, patience, and a willingness to get your hands dirty or your wallet open. If you're looking for a piece of automotive history that you can actually drive and enjoy, this 67 Mustang might just be the ticket. It's got charm, character, and the potential to be whatever you want it to be. Just be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with any half-century-old vehicle. Happy hunting, and may the classic car gods smile upon you. 3. Let's dive into this eye-catching 1953 Ford Crest that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $13,000. This isn't your run-of-the-mill 53 Ford. It's got some interesting modifications that make it a unique ride. First off, let's talk about that candy apple red paint job. It's a head-turner for sure, giving this classic coupe a vibrant, custom look. The seller describes the condition as excellent, which is pretty impressive for a car pushing 70 years old. However, let's keep in mind that excellent is subjective, especially when we're talking about modified classics. Now, here's where things get interesting. This 53 Ford is sporting a front clip from an 85-86 Oldsmobile Cutlass. That's a pretty significant modification that changes the look and feel of the original car. Under the hood, you'll find a 307 Oldsmobile V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission. This powertrain swap likely gives the car more oomph than it had originally, and the automatic makes it easier to cruise around town. The sellers added some modern conveniences too: power steering, disc brakes, and a tilt wheel. These upgrades should make this classic much more drivable in today's traffic. According to the ad, it runs, drives, and stops very well, which is always good to hear. But let's be real, no classic car is perfect, and this one has its quirks. The seller honestly points out a few issues. Both doors need to be lifted a bit to shut properly, and there's a small transmission fluid leak. These aren't deal breakers, but they're definitely things you'd want to address. The interior is described as very nice, which is great news. Often interiors can be the most challenging and expensive part of a restoration. And importantly, the seller mentions no rust issues, music to any classic car enthusiast's ears. Now, this isn't a numbers-matching, all-original restoration. It's more of a custom build with a classic shell. For some purists, the modifications might be a turnoff. But for others, this could be a great opportunity to own a unique, drivable classic with some modern amenities. At $13,000, it's not the cheapest 53 Ford out there, but it's not outrageous either, especially considering the work that's been done. As always with classics, especially modified ones, a thorough inspection is a must before buying. If you're in the market for a distinctive classic that you can actually drive and enjoy without breaking the bank on a full restoration, this candy apple red beauty might just be your ticket. Just be prepared for the occasional quirk and some ongoing tinkering. That's part of the classic car experience after all. 4. Let's talk about this interesting package deal on Craigslist. We've got not one but two Oldsmobile 98s up for grabs, all for $6,000. Now that's what I call a 2-for-1 special. Let's focus on the 1978 Oldsmobile 98 first. This black beauty is a full-size luxury sedan that's seen less than 50,000 miles in its lifetime. That's impressively low mileage for a car that's over 4 decades old. It's got that classic 70s style with a long, sleek body and probably enough trunk space to fit a small apartment. Under the hood, you're looking at a V8 engine. These old olds were known for their smooth, powerful rides, perfect for cruising down the highway in style. It's paired with an automatic transmission and rear-wheel drive, which was the standard setup for American luxury cars of this era. Now, let's be real here. The seller describes the condition as fair and admits it needs some work. That's not surprising for a car of this age, even with low mileage. But here's the good news. The interior is said to be in great shape. That's often the hardest and most expensive part to fix on these old cars. So it's a big plus. But wait, there's more. For the same $6,000, you're also getting a gold Oldsmobile 98 LS from the late 70s. We don't have as many details on this one, but hey, it's basically a free car at this point. The seller, Rob, seems pretty flexible. He's willing to sell them separately if you're only interested in one, And he's even offering delivery. That's a nice touch, especially if you're not local or don't have a way to transport these big old boats. Now let's be honest, these aren't show cars. They're projects, plain and simple. The black 78 needs work, and we don't know much about the condition of the gold one. But if you're handy with a wrench and have a passion for bringing old cars back to life, this could be a gold mine. Or, if you're into parts cars, you've got two donor vehicles for the price of one. At $6,000 for both, it's hard to go wrong here. Even if you only want one, you're likely looking at a decent deal. Just remember, these old luxury cars can be expensive to restore and maintain. Make sure you know what you're getting into. So, if you've got a soft spot for 70s American luxury and aren't afraid of a project or two, give Rob a call. Who knows? You might end up with a pair of classic cruisers that'll turn heads wherever you go. Just be prepared for some quality time in the garage getting these old girls road ready. 5. Let's talk about this 1981 Chevy Corvette that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $12,500. This C3 Corvette is a piece of American sports car history, and it's looking for a new home. First off, we're dealing with a white coupe with T-tops, which is a classic look for these third-generation Corvettes. Under the hood, you've got the 350 cubic inch V8, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. That's a combination that should put a smile on any gearhead's face. The odometer shows 63,000 miles, which is pretty low for a 40-year-old car. The seller claims these are original miles, and with only 2 previous owners, that could very well be true. They're also stating it has a clean title and no accidents, which is always good to hear. Now, the condition is listed as good, but let's read between the lines a bit. The ad mentions it needs a good doll up, which suggests it's not in show-ready condition. It might need some cosmetic work, maybe some interior refurbishment, or possibly some mechanical attention. On the bright side, the seller says it runs very strong, which is encouraging. A solid running engine is a great starting point for any classic car project. It's worth noting that this appears to be a hardship sale. The price has been reduced from $13,900 to $11,500, though the listing title says $12,500, so there's some confusion there, and the seller seems motivated to move it quickly. This could be an opportunity to negotiate, but remember to be respectful. Someone's clearly in a tough situation here. Let's be real, this Corvette isn't going to be perfect. It's a 40-year-old car that needs some work, but for the right buyer, it could be a great project. The C3 Corvettes have a dedicated following, and parts are generally readily available. Plus, with its manual transmission and relatively low miles, this could be a fun weekend driver once it's fixed up. If you're in the market for a classic Corvette and don't mind putting in some elbow grease, and probably some additional cash, this could be worth checking out. Just make sure to give it a thorough inspection before buying. These old sports cars can hide some expensive surprises if you're not careful. Remember, owning a classic car is often a labor of love. It might not be the most practical purchase, but the joy of cruising in a piece of American automotive history? For many enthusiasts, that's priceless. Just be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with any 4-decade-old vehicle. 6. Let's talk about this 1972 Mercury Montego MX that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $6,900. This green machine is a piece of early 70s automotive history that's begging for a new home. First off, let's address the elephant in the room, that 500,000-mile odometer reading. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's a lot of miles for a 50-year-old car. It's possible the odometer has rolled over, or there might be a typo in the listing. Either way, it's something to clarify with the seller. Under the hood, we've got a 351 Windsor V8 with dual exhaust. That's a solid power plant known for its reliability and decent power output. It's paired with an automatic transmission, which has been rebuilt, a $2,300 job that's already been done for you. The seller's been busy with this old girl, who they've affectionately named Myrtle. They've put in a new exhaust system, new windshield, new tires, and a bunch of other maintenance items like spark plugs, wires, battery, alternator, and front brakes. That's a good chunk of work already done. Now let's talk about the body. The paint is said to be original, which is pretty impressive for a 50-year-old car. There's reportedly very little rust, and the underside is clean, both big pluses for a car of this age. The vinyl top has been removed and the area primed, so that's a project waiting for the next owner. But it's not all roses. The carburetor needs adjustment, and the car could use a front-end alignment. These aren't major issues, but they're things you'll want to address to get Myrtle running her best. The seller is upfront about their intentions. They bought the car to fix up and sell, and they've done as much as they want to. They're looking for someone to finish the job and appreciate the car. That's a fair and honest approach. At $6,900, this Montego isn't the cheapest classic out there, but it's not outrageous either, especially considering the work that's been done. The seller mentions that four-door models in this condition are hard to find, which could justify the price if you're specifically looking for a Montego sedan. If you're in the market for a somewhat unusual classic that's had a good amount of work already done, this '72 Montego could be worth a look. It's not a show car, but it seems like a solid driver that could be a fun project to finish up. Just be prepared for the quirks and ongoing maintenance that come with any half-century-old vehicle. And remember, no trades and no haggling. The seller's pretty clear about that. So, if you've got a soft spot for '70s Mercuries and don't mind putting in a bit more work to get her perfect, give Myrtle a look. Who knows? You might end up with a unique classic that'll turn heads at your local car show. 7. Let's talk about this sweet 1954 Chevrolet 210 that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $9,500. This blue beauty is a real slice of 1950s Americana, and it's looking for a new home. First off, let's appreciate that this Chevy 210 has only 70,000 miles on the clock. For a car that's pushing 70 years old, that's pretty impressive. It suggests this old girl hasn't been run into the ground, which is always a good start. Under the hood, we're looking at the original inline-six engine. Now, it might not be a powerhouse V8, but these straight sixes were known for their reliability and smooth operation. It's paired with a manual transmission, giving you that authentic 50s driving experience. The seller's been busy with this classic, and that's good news for potential buyers. They've put on new radial tires, which should provide a smoother, safer ride than the original bias ply tires. They've also installed new brakes, a new exhaust system, and a new radiator. Plus, it's had a tune-up. All of this work suggests that the car is in good running condition, which the seller confirms by saying it runs, drives, stops as it should. Now, let's talk about the aesthetics. The car is painted blue, and it's sporting 5 painted rims with dog dish hubcaps, a classic 50s look. The interior is described as original and in good shape, which is pretty rare for a car of this age. Often, interiors are the first to go, so having a good original interior is a big plus. One thing I really appreciate is that the lights and gauges are said to be working properly. That's not always the case with old cars, and it can be a headache to fix, so it's great that everything's in order here. The seller describes the overall condition as good, and from what they've shared, that seems fair. It's not a show car, but it sounds like a solid driver that you could enjoy right away, while gradually restoring it to its former glory if you wanted to. At $9,500, it's not the cheapest '54 Chevy out there, but it's not outrageous either, especially considering the work that's been done. These 210 models are less common than the ubiquitous Bel Air, which might add to its appeal for some collectors. If you're in the market for a drivable piece of 1950s automotive history, this '54 Chevy 210 could be worth a look. It seems like a solid driver that you could enjoy right away, with the potential to become a real showstopper with some additional TLC. Just remember, as with any classic car, a thorough inspection is always a good idea before buying. And be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with owning a vehicle that's nearly 7 decades old. 8. Let's dive into this 1966 Dodge Dart GT that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $6,000. This red rocket is a piece of 1960s muscle car history that's looking for a new home. First off, we're dealing with a GT model here, which is always a nice find. Originally, this was a V8 automatic car, but it's now sporting a rebuilt 318 cubic inch V8. That's a solid, reliable engine that should give you plenty of grunt without breaking the bank on gas. Now let's talk mileage. The odometer shows 64,000 miles, but the seller notes it's rolled over. So we're likely looking at 164,000 miles or more. That's not necessarily a deal breaker for a car this old, but it's something to keep in mind. The seller's been busy with this Dart, adding a bunch of new parts. There's a new Champion radiator with an electric fan, which should help keep things cool. They've also installed a new gas tank, though there's a bit of a hiccup there. It leaks if you overfill it. The seller suggests a used gasket, or a small additional gasket might fix the issue, but that's something you'd want to address. On the performance front, this Dart's got some interesting mods. It's been converted to a big bolt pattern, 5 on 4.5, and has front disc brakes. That's a nice upgrade for improved stopping power. The wheels are a mix of rally wheels up front and stock in the back, which the seller is looking to improve. There's a bit of history here too. Apparently this Dart was a street racer back in the 70s in Washington. The inner fenders have holes where big headers used to loop over, which is a cool little piece of this car's story. Currently, it's running stock exhaust manifolds with a new dual exhaust system. Now, let's be real here. This isn't a pristine, show-ready car. It's got some quirks and needs some attention. The gas tank issue needs sorting, the wheels need matching, and with its history as a street racer, there might be other surprises lurking. But for $6,000, you're getting a running, driving piece of Mopar history with some nice upgrades already done. If you're in the market for a project car with good bones, this '66 Dart GT could be a great starting point. It's got that classic muscle car look, a reliable V8, and some performance upgrades already in place. Just be prepared to put in some work to get it to its full potential. And as always with classics, a thorough inspection before buying is a must. So, if you've got a soft spot for Mopar muscle and don't mind getting your hands dirty, this Dart might be worth a look. It could be your ticket to some serious classic car fun without breaking the bank. Just remember, with any old car, expect the unexpected and budget for ongoing maintenance and improvements. 9. Let's talk about this sweet 1965 Ford Ranchero that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $15,000. This beauty is a perfect blend of car and truck, a true icon of the 60s automotive ingenuity. First off, let's appreciate that odometer reading, just 53,800 miles. For a vehicle pushing 60 years old, that's impressively low mileage. It suggests this Ranchero hasn't been run into the ground, which is always a good start. Now here's something that'll make the purists smile. The seller claims this Ranchero is sporting its original paint and upholstery, both in good condition. That's pretty rare for a car of this age, and it adds a lot of value for collectors who appreciate originality. Of course, good condition is subjective when we're talking about 60-year-old paint and upholstery, so you'd want to inspect it closely. One of the coolest features of the Ranchero is, of course, that pickup bed. It gives you the style and comfort of a car with the utility of a small truck. Perfect for hauling your surfboard to the beach or picking up some gardening supplies, all while looking incredibly cool. The seller mentions a brand new rebuilt automatic transmission, which is a significant plus. Transmission work can be expensive, so having that done recently is a big advantage. Interestingly, they've kept all the manual 3-speed parts and are including them with the sale. That's great news if you ever want to convert it back to a manual, or if you're into collecting original parts. Another positive point is that this Ranchero has reportedly passed a 30-point inspection and has been recently detailed. That suggests it's in good mechanical condition and is ready to show off. At $15,000, it's not the cheapest classic out there, but for a low-mileage original paint Ranchero in good condition, it's not unreasonable. These vehicles have a dedicated following, and their unique car-truck design makes them stand out in a crowd. Now let's be real here. This is still a 58-year-old vehicle. Even with low miles and good care, it's going to have some quirks and will likely need ongoing maintenance. The seller doesn't mention the engine condition or any recent mechanical work beyond the transmission, so you'd want to check those areas carefully. If you're in the market for a classic that combines style and utility, this 65 Ranchero could be a great choice. It sounds like a solid driver that you could enjoy right away, with the potential to be a real showstopper with some additional TLC. Just remember, as with any classic car, a thorough inspection is always a good idea before buying. And be prepared for the quirks and maintenance that come with owning a vehicle from the 1960s. 10. Let's dive deeper into this 1977 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. At $8,900, this classic piece of American luxury is definitely worth a closer look for any vintage car enthusiast. The seller describes it as being in excellent condition, which is pretty impressive for a car that's over 4 decades old. This Eldorado is powered by a robust 8-cylinder engine, which was the heart of these luxury cruisers back in the day. Interestingly, it's front-wheel drive, a feature that set Cadillac apart from its competitors in that era. The odometer shows 77,529 miles, which isn't bad at all for a car of this age. It suggests that this Caddy has been used enough to keep everything in working order, but not so much that it's worn out. The seller mentions that it runs beautifully, which is crucial for a classic car. You want something that you can actually drive and enjoy, not just look at. Some key points that make this Eldorado stand out are the lack of rust, which is often the bane of classic car ownership, and the recent improvements made to the car. It's sporting a new vinyl top, which would have been a signature style element in the 70s. New tires are always a plus, ensuring safe driving and potentially saving the new owner some immediate expenses. The new exhaust system is another welcome update, likely improving both the performance and the iconic sound of this American classic. The fact that the carburetor was rebuilt last year is also a significant plus, as it's a critical component for the smooth running of the engine. The Biarritz trim level was the top of the line for the Eldorado, offering the height of luxury for its time. These cars were all about smooth, comfortable cruising, and if this one is as good as described, it should deliver that classic Cadillac experience in spades. The white paint color is classic and elegant, perfect for a car of this stature. Of course, as with any used car, especially a classic, it would be wise to see it in person and perhaps get a professional inspection before making a decision. But if everything checks out, this could be a fantastic opportunity to own a piece of automotive history. These Eldorados are becoming increasingly rare, especially in good condition. So for the right buyer, this could be a chance to own a slice of the 1970s American luxury car scene. 11. We're taking a look at a 1979 Buick Skylark that's currently up for grabs at $3,050. This yellow classic is a piece of American automotive history, and it might just be the perfect project for someone looking to dive into the world of vintage cars without breaking the bank. Let's break it down. This Skylark is powered by a 3.8L V6 engine paired with an automatic transmission, which should provide a smooth, classic driving experience. The seller claims it runs and drives, which is always a good start for a car of this age. With a clean title and only 49,704 miles on the odometer, it seems like a low-mileage gem. However, the seller does mention they're not sure if the odometer has rolled over, so take that number with a grain of salt. Now, let's talk about condition. The seller describes the body as having normal wear and tear, but in overall good condition. The interior is said to be original and in good shape, which is a big plus for collectors. The floorboards are solid, which is crucial for these older cars, as they can often suffer from rust issues. It's also got good tires and all its hubcaps, so you won't need to worry about those right away. One of the standout features is that the AC works and blows cold, a rare find in a car from this era. However, keep in mind that this Skylark comes with manual windows and locks, so you'll be getting a true late 70s experience. On the downside, the registration needs to be updated, but the seller has a clean California pink slip in hand, which should make the process straightforward. Overall, this 1979 Buick Skylark seems like it could be a solid buy for someone looking to get into classic car ownership without diving into a major restoration project. It's not perfect, but it appears to be in decent shape for its age. As always with older cars, I'd recommend a thorough inspection before making a decision. But if everything checks out, this could be a fun, drivable classic that won't cost you an arm and a leg. Just remember, with any 40-plus-year-old car, you're likely to encounter some quirks and maintenance needs along the way. But hey, that's part of the charm of classic car ownership, right? 12. Let's talk about this 1971 Buick Skylark that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $13,900. This classic American muscle car is definitely worth a closer look if you're into preserving automotive history. First off, we're looking at a Skylark with a 350 cubic inch V8 engine paired with a 350 transmission. That's a solid powertrain combination that was popular in its day for good reason. The seller claims it runs and drives fantastically, which is always music to a classic car lover's ears. With 113,000 miles on the clock, it's clear this Buick has been driven and enjoyed, but that's not necessarily a bad thing for a car that's over 50 years old. One of the standout features of this Skylark is its originality. The seller mentions it's an Arkansas car, which could be good news in terms of rust prevention, as Arkansas isn't known for harsh winters and road salt. They also highlight that it has all original sheet metal and is 100% stock. For collectors and purists, this is a big deal. Finding an unmolested example of a classic car is becoming increasingly rare, so this could be a real gem for the right buyer. The factory-painted top is another interesting feature. It adds to the car's originality and could be a talking point at car shows. The clean title is also a plus, suggesting a straightforward ownership history. Now, it's important to note that the seller doesn't provide many details about the car's condition beyond saying it runs and drives fantastically. They don't mention any restoration work or recent maintenance, so potential buyers should definitely ask for more information and, ideally, see the car in person before making a decision. The price point of $13,900 puts this Skylark in a range where it's not cheap, but it's not astronomical either for a classic muscle car. Whether it's a good deal or not would depend heavily on the car's actual condition and how much work it might need. In conclusion, this 1971 Buick Skylark could be a great find for someone looking for an original, unmodified example of classic American muscle. Its originality and claimed good running condition are definite selling points. However, as with any classic car purchase, it would be wise to inspect it thoroughly or have a professional look it over before committing. If everything checks out, this could be a fantastic opportunity to own a piece of automotive history that you can actually drive and enjoy. 13. Let's talk about this 1976 Lincoln Continental Mark IV Cartier edition that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $3,800. Now, I've got to be straight with you. This isn't a pristine show car, but it could be a diamond in the rough for the right buyer. First off, we're looking at a piece of true American luxury from the 70s. This Continental is packing a massive 460 cubic inch big block V8 under the hood, which was all about smooth power delivery back in the day. The seller mentions it's fully loaded, which for a 76 Continental means you're probably getting all the period-correct luxury features. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the condition. The seller honestly describes it as fair and mentions that the body and vinyl top need some attention. That's classic car code for needs work, folks. But here's the silver lining. They say it's a very solid car, which could mean the dreaded rust issues might not be too bad. On the plus side, there's been some recent work done. We're talking new tires, a new fuel tank and lines, and all new brakes. That's a good chunk of maintenance taken care of right there, which could save you some headaches and cash down the line. The gray paint might not be turning heads right now, but with some TLC, this Cartier Edition Continental could really shine. Remember, these were the cream of the crop in terms of luxury back in the day. At $3,800, you're not breaking the bank to get into classic car ownership. But be realistic, you're going to need to invest some time, effort, and probably more money to get this land yacht back to its former glory. This Continental could be a great project for someone who wants to dip their toes into the classic car world without spending a fortune up front. It's got a clean Texas title, which is always a plus. Just remember, a car like this is a labor of love. If you're up for the challenge and have some skills, or are willing to learn, this could be a rewarding project. Bottom line, it's not perfect, but it's priced accordingly. If you've always dreamed of cruising in 70s luxury and don't mind putting in some work, this 1976 Lincoln Continental Mark IV Cartier Edition might just be your ticket to ride. Just make sure you give it a thorough inspection before making any decisions. 14. Let's dive into this 1968 Dodge Monaco that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $5,900. This blue beauty is a slice of late 60s Americana that's sure to turn some heads. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller describes it as good and backs that up with some promising details. They claim there's almost no rust, which is a big deal for a car that's over half a century old. Rust is often the bane of classic car ownership, so this is definitely a point in this Monaco's favor. Under the hood, we've got a 318 cubic inch V8 engine, which the seller says runs and drives well. It's not the most powerful engine Dodge offered in these cars, but it should provide plenty of smooth cruising power. The transmission is automatic, making this an easy car to drive by today's standards. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The seller has put some serious work into this Monaco. They've installed new tires and wheels, which apparently cost $2,900. That's a significant investment. They've also added a new 650 CFM carburetor, which set them back another $700. These upgrades suggest that the current owner has been taking care of the mechanical aspects of the car. However, it's not all perfect. The interior needs some attention, with the seats and headliner needing to be redone. This is pretty common for cars of this age, and while it's not a deal breaker, it's something you'll want to factor into your budget if you're considering this Monaco. The odometer shows 14,000 miles, but given the age of the car, it's likely that this has rolled over at least once. Always assume higher mileage on classic cars unless there's documentation to prove otherwise. One of the most appealing aspects of this Monaco is that everything is said to work. Lights, signals, heat, the whole 9 yards. That's not always a given with classic cars, so it's a definite plus. At $5,900, this Monaco seems reasonably priced for what you're getting. It's not a show car, but it sounds like a solid driver that you could enjoy right away while gradually improving it over time. The investment in new wheels, tires, and carburetor suggests that you're getting a car that's mechanically sound. In conclusion, if you're in the market for a classic American sedan that you can actually drive and enjoy without breaking the bank, this 1968 Dodge Monaco could be worth a look. It's not perfect, but it seems to be an honest car with some recent improvements. As always with classics, a thorough in-person inspection is recommended before making a decision. 15. Let's talk about this 1966 Dodge Dart GT convertible that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $9,800. This little gem is a piece of Mopar history that's sure to catch the eye of any true muscle car fan. First off, we're looking at a convertible, which always adds a cool factor to any classic car. The seller describes the overall condition as good, but let's dive a bit deeper into what we're dealing with here. Under the hood, we've got a 360 cubic inch V8 engine. Now this is interesting because the 360 wasn't actually available in the Dart in 1966. It's likely a later engine swap, which could be a good thing in terms of power and parts availability. It's paired with an automatic transmission, making this Dart an easy cruiser. The seller says it runs and drives, which is always a good start with a classic car. However, they're also upfront about the fact that it needs some TLC. This is where you need to read between the lines a bit. TLC could mean anything from minor cosmetic issues to more significant mechanical work. It's definitely something you'd want to inquire about further. On the plus side, the car is currently registered, which suggests it's in drivable condition and has been on the road recently. That's often a good sign for a classic car, as it means it hasn't been sitting neglected for years. The listing doesn't provide much detail about the body condition, interior state, or any recent work done. This lack of information is something to be cautious about. When dealing with a classic car, especially a convertible, You'll want to know about any potential rust issues, the condition of the top, and the state of the interior. At $9,800, this Dart GT is priced in the middle range for these models. It's not a bargain basement project car, but it's also not priced like a fully restored show car. This suggests you're likely getting a driver-quality classic that needs some work, but isn't a complete basket case. In conclusion, this 1966 Dodge Dart GT convertible could be a fun project for the right buyer. It's got the makings of a cool classic cruiser with its convertible top and V8 power. However, the mention of needed TLC and the lack of detailed information means you definitely want to see this car in person and maybe get a professional inspection before making a decision. If everything checks out and you're prepared for some work, this could be your ticket to classic Mopar ownership. Just remember, with any classic car, especially one that needs some love, always budget for unexpected issues. 16. Let's talk about this 1963 Pontiac Bonneville convertible that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $9,000. This big, beautiful boat from the early 60s is a real slice of American automotive history, and it's got some interesting features that make it stand out. First off, we're looking at a white exterior with a black convertible top and black interior. A classic color combo that never goes out of style. The seller mentions it's got 117,000 miles on the clock, which isn't too bad for a car that's pushing 60 years old. Now here's where it gets interesting. This Bonneville isn't running its original engine. Instead, it's got a V8 400 cubic inch engine out of a Firebird. That's a pretty potent power plant that should give this big convertible some serious get up and go. The transmission is only 2 years old, which is great news for reliability. However, note that it's now a 3-speed on the floor, replacing the original column shifter. That's a significant modification that changes the driving experience from the original. The seller has done some recent work, including new Pontiac floor mats, a new convertible boot, and a new all-in-one points and condenser. These are nice touches that show the car has been cared for. Now let's talk condition. The seller rates the paint and body as a 6 out of 10. That's a pretty honest assessment, suggesting it's in decent driver condition, but not a show car. It's been garage kept, which is always a plus for preserving these old beauties. At $9,000, this Bonneville is priced in the range where you're getting a drivable classic that needs some TLC, rather than a fully restored show car. The engine swap and transmission change might turn off purists, but for someone looking for a fun cruiser with a bit more power than stock, this could be a great option. In conclusion, this 1963 Pontiac Bonneville convertible seems like a solid driver-quality classic with some interesting modifications. It's not perfect, and it's not original, but it sounds like a car you could jump in and enjoy right away, while gradually improving it over time. As always with classics, a thorough in-person inspection is recommended before making a decision. If you're looking for a big, stylish convertible from the 60s that you can actually drive and enjoy without breaking the bank, this Bonneville might just fit the bill. 17. Let's dive into this 1976 Lincoln Continental that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $5,000. This big red land yacht is a true representation of 1970s American luxury. But let's be real, it's going to need some work. First off, we're looking at a 4-door sedan with 96,000 miles on the clock. That's not terrible for a car of this age. But remember, these old odometers only went up to 99,999 before rolling over, so it could potentially have more miles than that. The seller is upfront about this Continental being a project vehicle, which is refreshingly honest. They mention it runs and drives, which is always a good starting point for any classic car project. However, they also say it needs a little TLC, which in classic car lingo often means it needs work. Let's break down what we know about the condition. The interior is described as being in mid-condition, which probably means it's usable, but not great. The headliner needs work, which is a common issue in cars of this vintage. More significantly, the top needs redone. This could refer to the vinyl roof, which was a popular feature on these cars. Replacing a vinyl roof can be a significant job, so factor that into your budget if you're considering this Continental. On the plus side, it has a clean title, which is always good news when dealing with older vehicles. The red paint could be a striking feature if it's in decent condition, but the seller doesn't provide any details about the exterior state. At $5,000, this Continental is priced in the range where you're getting a project car, not a fully restored classic. It's important to understand that you're buying a car that will need additional investment in both time and money to bring it up to a nice driver condition. In conclusion, this 1976 Lincoln Continental could be a fun project for someone who loves these massive luxury cars of the 70s and has the skills, or the budget, to tackle some restoration work. It's not going to be a quick or easy flip, but with some work, it could be a cool cruiser. Just remember, these big old luxury cars can be expensive to restore and maintain, so go into it with your eyes open. If you're up for the challenge and have always wanted to captain your own land yacht, this Continental in Victoria, Texas might be worth a look. As always, a thorough in-person inspection is highly recommended before making any decisions. 18. Let's talk about this 1966 AMC Rambler Classic that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $7,500. Now, if you're into unique American classics that stand out from the usual crowd of Fords and Chevys, this might just be the ticket. This Rambler is sporting a straight-six engine paired with an automatic transmission, which was a popular combo back in the day for its reliability and decent fuel economy. The seller claims it's all original, which is always a plus for collectors and purists. With 64,098 miles on the odometer, it's got some life experience, but that's not too bad for a car that's pushing 60 years old. Now let's get real about the condition. The seller describes it as good and a solid car, which is promising. They mention that the floors, trunk, engine bay, and doors are all solid, which is music to any classic car restorer's ears. Rust is often the biggest enemy of these old cars, so hearing that the key areas are solid is a good sign. However, it's not all roses. The seller is upfront about the fact that the starter needs repairing, so that's something you'll need to factor into your budget. They also mention that the car needs body and paint work. This is where you need to be cautious. Needs body and paint can mean anything from a few dings and faded paint to more serious issues. It would be wise to inspect this in person or get more detailed photos before making a decision. On the plus side, the windshield is crack-free, and the car is described as complete, which means you're not likely to be hunting down rare trim pieces or interior bits. The blue paint could be attractive if refreshed, and these Ramblers have a unique, boxy style that's really coming back into fashion among classic car enthusiasts. At $7,500, this Rambler is priced in a range where you're getting a project car, not a fully restored classic. The seller describes it as a great starter for small restoration, which seems accurate based on the description. In conclusion, this 1966 AMC Rambler Classic could be a fun project for someone looking to get into classic car restoration without breaking the bank. It's not perfect, but it sounds like a solid starting point. Just remember, even small restorations can quickly become big projects, so budget accordingly. If you've always wanted a unique piece of American automotive history and aren't afraid of a little, or possibly a lot, of elbow grease, this Rambler might be worth checking out. As always, a thorough in-person inspection is highly recommended before making any decisions. 19. Let's dive into this 1966 Chevy Caprice that's currently listed on Craigslist for $8,000. Now I've got to be straight with you, this one's a project and a big one at that. First off, we're looking at a two-door Caprice, which is a desirable body style for these mid-60s full-size Chevys. The seller mentions it's a matching numbers car with a 396 cubic inch engine, which is definitely a selling point for collectors and restorers. However, that's where the good news mostly ends. Let's be clear. This car doesn't run. The seller is upfront about the fact that it needs to be fully restored or used for parts. They mention that while the engine and transmission aren't locked up, the rear end is seized. That's a significant issue that'll need addressing before this Caprice moves under its own power again. The condition is described as fair, but given the details provided, that might be a bit optimistic. The odometer shows 217,192 miles, but the seller notes it's broken, so the actual mileage is unknown. The blue paint might be original, but after 55+ years, it's likely seen better days. Now, $8,000 might seem steep for a non-running project car, but the seller is banking on the matching numbers 396 engine and the desirability of the two-door body style. They're also clear that they won't entertain lowball offers. Here's the bottom line. This 1966 Chevy Caprice is for someone who's looking for a serious restoration project or possibly a parts car for another restoration. It's not something you're going to get running with a weekend's worth of work. You'll need to factor in towing costs, as well as potentially significant restoration expenses. If you're a die-hard Chevy enthusiast with the skills, time, and budget for a full restoration, this could be an interesting starting point. The matching numbers 396 engine is a valuable piece if it's salvageable. However, be prepared for a long-term project and significant investment beyond the asking price. Remember, always inspect a classic car in person before making a decision, especially one in this condition. Make sure you know what you're getting into. This Caprice could be someone's dream car someday, but it's going to take a lot of work to get there. 20. We're diving into a classic beauty that's up for grabs on Craigslist. Get ready to feast your eyes on a 1950 Packard Deluxe, a true gem from the golden era of American automobiles. This stunning sedan is currently available for $13,500, and let me tell you, it's a head-turner. With its sleek brown paint job, this Packard Deluxe commands attention wherever it goes. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful straight-8 engine ready to roar to life and take you on a nostalgic journey down memory lane. Now, the seller mentions that the front seat could use some TLC, but don't let that deter you. The rest of the car is said to be in very nice condition, making it a solid investment for any collector or enthusiast looking to own a piece of automotive history. The odometer reads 64,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. It's a testament to the care and maintenance this Packard has received over the years. The car comes with a clean title, giving you peace of mind knowing that you're getting a vehicle with a transparent history. One of the most exciting features of this 1950 Packard Deluxe is its manual transmission. For those who appreciate the thrill of shifting gears and feeling connected to the road, this car offers an authentic driving experience that's hard to find in modern vehicles. While the seller describes the overall condition as good, it's essential to keep in mind that this is a 70-year-old car. It may have some minor imperfections or signs of age, but that's all part of the charm and character that comes with owning a classic vehicle. In conclusion, if you're looking for a stunning piece of American automotive history, this 1950 Packard Deluxe is definitely worth considering. With its powerful straight-8 engine, manual transmission, and attention-grabbing appearance, it's sure to turn heads and spark conversations wherever you go. Don't miss out on the opportunity to own this classic beauty.